This weekend it has rained for nearly the entire weekend, so I have been unable to get out and try cameras and photograph, but I am still going to talk about a camera today, and it's a little Italian camera, and it's, you might not know the name, but if you were around in the 1950s or 60s or even 70s, you might have heard of the name Ferrania, because Ferrania was an Italian company who made film, and they made it in some senses. Ferrania was the equivalent, Italian equivalent of Agfa or Kodak. He was an enormous maker of film, in particularly colour film and cine film. And eventually, I think the company started in about 1929, and it was eventually taken over by the enormous manufacturing company that is 3M. And 3M continued to use the factories and the Ferrania name until I think about 1990, and then eventually the film processing ceased in about 2009. So it was a company with a long history. And in the 50s, they made a range of point and shoot cameras. Well, this is a tiny bit more than a point and shoot. It has a nice design to it. It doesn't feel bottom of the market, and I would say it's sort of a little bit higher than the bottom of the market. I'm going to start with a rather, you might think, unusual thing about the back of the camera. It has two windows. Why has it got two windows? Let's take the back off and have a look at the inside of the camera. Again, a bit different. You have to undo these two parts here, and the back comes off completely. Now, can you see the back of this camera? Here we have the exposure window, and here is the wheel. This camera took a type of film called 127, and 127 is a smaller wheel than 120. 120 is that, and 127 is smaller. 120 is 6 centimeters high, and this is equivalent, I think, to 4 centimeters. So with this type of film, you could get smaller cameras. And from the 1920s until the early 60s, 127 was a very popular format. And in particular, it was more aimed at the snapper than 35mm, actually. Now, it's normal for 127 to have an aperture of, or a window size of 4x4, and this made something called the super slide, which was again very popular in the 1960s. And with the 4x4 format, you could get 16 on a film. With this, sorry, I think you got 12 on a film. With this format of 6 by, I think it's 4 here, might be 3, but you've got, sorry, you've got 4 here by 3. Now, this format, you could get 16 on a roll. But in order to get the spacing right and to make sure you got 16, you had to be a little bit clever. When you started a film, you would wind it to number 1 here in the first window, but sorry, this window here. But when you had to wind on to number 2, you would only wind it as far as this window, and number 3, this window. And likewise, so you had to use alternating windows. Apparently people got used to this, but I think it could have been a bit complicated sometimes, but apparently people did get used to it. And as I said, with this camera you have a focusing lens. It's interesting that the focal length is put in, the distance is put into feet. So this is for the British market or American market. If it was a European camera, it would be in meters. We have the shutter speed of 50 a hundredth of a second and B. It has got a exposure lock, so we can't double expose. You have to wind on to get the next exposure. It's got a sort of metal top and a plastic body, and it's called an IBIS 34. There were a number of IBIS, and it definitely has a nice look to it. It's a shame that these cameras can't easily be used. You can sort of get 127, but it is expensive and it's quite difficult to get hold of, though you can get it on the internet. But why do people still buy these? And you can buy them really cheaply. I got it with a job lot of other cameras. It's the aesthetics. It has got that Italian look. It would look great in a little cabinet. It could be used in a photo shoot as a prop. Although I don't really like cameras that you can't use, I do appreciate the design, and for many people they are a good collector's item. So thank you for watching today. Bye for now.